Something huge is happening right now inside the world's leading companies. It's all about ESG data. That's environmental, social, and governance data. And it's being totally transformed from this chaotic burden into an incredibly powerful strategic asset. So let's dive in and see exactly how they're doing it.
For the longest time, the story of ESG data was just a pain. It was seen as a liability, this messy, disorganized headache nobody wanted to deal with. But a completely new approach is flipping that script. It's reframing this data as an intelligent asset, a real source of competitive advantage. And this explainer, it's all about that journey from the old way to the new one.
All right, so first up, let's get real and talk about something many of us know all too well, the ESG data headache. It's a story that's pretty much defined by chaos and honestly a deep lack of trust in the numbers themselves.
So what's really going on inside this headache? Picture this. You've got critical data living in who knows how many scattered spreadsheets. You've got information trickling in through unverifiable emails from suppliers. You have these old legacy systems that just refuse to talk to each other, and all of that leads to literally thousands of manual entries, which makes any kind of audit feel, well, impossible. It's a total recipe for disaster and, even worse, for doubt.
And what's the result of all this chaos? Well, it's pretty simple, really. When your team is stuck in this endless cycle, their time isn't spent on big-picture strategy or making a real impact out on the world. Nope, it's spent just chasing down the data. The focus shifts entirely to the process, not the performance. But here's the thing. That's all starting to change, and in a big way. We're finally moving away from seeing data as this heavy burden and towards seeing it as a valuable asset. This is all about redefining ESG data for what it actually is: core business intelligence.
Okay, so what does that actually mean in plain English? It means we're finally recognizing that ESG data isn't some separate fluffy thing over on the side. Your emissions data? That's directly tied to your cost planning. Supplier compliance? That is fundamental to having a resilient supply chain. And your workforce metrics? That's the heart and soul of your talent strategy. It is all connected.
And look, this shift isn't just happening because it's a nice idea. The pressure is coming from everywhere. Regulators, they want audit-ready data now, no more guesstimates. Investors, they are scrutinizing these metrics just as closely as the financials. Your own customers and employees are demanding transparency. And leaders, they need real-time dashboards to make decisions, not some static PDF from 3 months ago. The old way just can't keep up anymore.
So, we get the what and the why. But how are the top companies actually pulling this off? Well, that brings us to the leader's playbook. The practical, concrete steps that these companies are taking to build a real foundation of trust in their data.
And it really breaks down into 3 key steps. First, they map the foundation. They figure out exactly where every single piece of data is born. Step 2, they automate the flow, ingesting data directly from the source systems, not from some poor soul typing it into a spreadsheet. And then the final, crucial step, they integrate that data directly into the business workflows where the real decisions get made.
Now here is a really important point. This whole transformation, it cannot happen in a silo. Your sustainability team, as great as they are, cannot do this alone. To truly build this kind of trusted data foundation, it takes a village.
So who needs to be in that village? Who needs a seat at this table? Well, finance, absolutely. This stuff hits the budget and capital planning. Supply chain? You bet. This is all about risk modeling. HR needs this data to track the health and diversity of the workforce. And of course, risk and compliance are looking at all of it through the lens of business continuity. When each team owns their piece of the puzzle, that's when you get true enterprise-wide intelligence.
Okay, so let's say you've done all this hard work. You've built the system, you've gotten the village on board. Now what? What's the big payoff? Let's talk about unlocking real strategic advantage, the actual business wins that follow.
And I want to be crystal clear about this. The benefits we're talking about go way beyond just hitting a sustainability target or filing a report for compliance. We're talking about tangible business value.
The connection here is so direct you can draw a straight line from one to the other. For example, when you have trustworthy real-time emissions data, you can actually optimize your energy costs. When you're tracking supplier compliance at scale, you reduce those expensive supply chain disruptions. And with solid workforce inclusion metrics, you can build a proactive talent strategy instead of always just reacting. These are bottom-line business wins, plain and simple.
And it doesn't stop there. The advantages just keep piling up. Companies with these mature data systems, they attract the best hybrid talent.
The people who blend ESG expertise with sharp analytics. They can run advanced scenario planning for things like climate risk. Their audits and assurance cycles become way smoother, way less costly. And ultimately, they build genuinely resilient supply networks.
But here's the reality check. Not everyone is getting on this train. And that is creating a serious divide in the business world, which brings us to our final section, the widening gap. Right now, companies are facing a critical choice that's putting them on one of two very different paths. You're either leading or you're lagging.
And you can see where their energy goes. It's just completely different. The laggards are still stuck in the weeds, dedicating all their time and energy to just manual data collection, trying to keep up. The leaders, they've already solved that problem. Their teams are free to focus on generating powerful, strategic insights from the data. They're playing a totally different game.
And you might think the big difference here is a massive budget, but it's not. It really isn't. It all comes down to mindset. It's about the willingness to treat ESG data as a core strategic asset instead of just another pesky obligation. That mental switch is what unlocks everything else.
And that brings us to the most critical point of all. You can't afford to wait. Inaction has a real cost. The gap between the organizations that get on this early and those that delay is getting wider every single quarter. The window to play catch-up is closing fast.
So that really just leaves one final, and I think very important question for you to think about. When you look at your own organization and your own data, ask yourself this. Is it an asset that's building trust with your investors, your customers, and your team? Or is it a liability that's quietly creating risk? The answer to that question is going to define your future.